The breakfast
Hi,
is live.
homeschoolers! I'm Heather, and welcome to another Homeschool Live presented by the Old Schoolhouse. Thank you for tuning in today, and today I will be interviewing Deede Cauley, the CEO of the Real Reading Company. Deede and I would really appreciate it if you could take a minute right now and share this video so we can get it out there to any homeschooler that you may know. Also, please feel free to comment and like and ask questions throughout the interview. And now I'm really looking forward to introducing you to Deede Cauley, CEO of the Real Reading Company. She is the creator of the phenomenally successful Reading and Spelling Pure and Simple series. She has been involved in teaching reading to adults, teens, and children for nearly 40 years and is a licensed professional counselor. She's a former special agent in the FBI, training and serving during the Reagan administration. Her teaching career started in 1973. And she has experience at nearly every level of instruction. She had the privilege of homeschooling her son for several years as well. Hi, Deede. So glad to have you today.
Hi, Heather. I'm really glad to be here.
So I think we just need to jump right into this thing. We're talking about reading, and there's so many different types of people who need to learn to read. It's not just your preschooler, right? We have different children, different levels, different abilities. So I would love, could you just give us an explanation of different types of children that you are trying to reach through your program?
Well, let me give you 3 children just as a sample that are interesting examples. Rebecca is a kindergartner, and she is amazing and has all these huge vocabulary words, and she's always very creative. When she sits with her mom, and she's always adding new big words. She sits with her mom and she does the kindergarten class program. She looks at the picture and tells this amazing story, but she refuses to look at the words. And I want to tell you about TJ. TJ is a 7th grader reading on a 2nd grade level. And I want to tell you about Gina's autistic son, who's the first time I met her, he was 11, and he was nonverbal, non-writing, and I just said, don't worry about teaching him.
Wow. So can you share with us how the Real Reading Company can help children like
I'll finish some about them later.
Oh, great.
I'll tell a little more about them later.
Okay. Could you tell us what about the Real Reading Company? What inspired you to start it, and just the basics of it?
In a nutshell, there's so many ins and outs, but I had no intention of writing a book, of writing workbooks, of founding a company. I just started working with children, and all of my teaching years, I'd encountered kids who were very bright but weren't reading, and I didn't understand. Once I found out why and what could be done about it, I become very passionate. And I told the Lord I was done, I was through, I was finished. I'm not doing this anymore. At one point, 40 years ago. And my friend said, we've got 4 kids who are not reading. Would you come and work with them? And I was like, ugh. I wish I'd said, oh, yes, Lord, I will. I said, oh, whatever. And so I went to work with those 4 children, and I started looking for curriculum. I'd been connected to the homeschool and public school community, and I searched and searched. And you can't go and meet with kids and say, you know, I'm going to have lessons for you next week. I can't find it yet. So I started writing lessons and then wound up with 100 children in 2 churches very quickly, begging to come to reading and spelling. And people asked me to go and do phonics workshops. So that's where it came from, is that I became passionate about how important it is to read. You know, it's so important that in the Civil War, pre-Civil War days, one state made it a death penalty case to teach a slave to read. That gave too much power to the individual. And so, you know, for me personally, if one cannot read, they cannot read the Bible. And if one cannot read, they cannot research and search for truth. And so it's foundational. It's so important. And it is doable. I didn't know how doable it was until I got into this.
Yeah. That is so true. That is, my husband always says that to the children. If they're not, if they're fighting me with learning to read, we say, this is why you're learning to read. You need to learn the Bible because the Bible's the truth. That is the only thing that's going to stand when everything else falls. So in order to read it for yourself, you need to learn to read. So that's our premise for that as well.
And there isn't any curriculum out there that teaches all the kids. A lot of it is public school light or Christian light. It doesn't do what the old 100 years ago did, where they introduced the syllable patterns of the language and they learned how to read, learning the syllables. All of the other curriculum, there's wonderful curriculum out there, but it doesn't teach them all to read.
Right. So the name of your program is Real Reading Company, which really stands out to me because I'm thinking, okay, real reading. That is powerful. I'm thinking that real reading, you're implying that phonics is real reading. Is that what you're saying? Because
phonics
I learned to read
comprehension. Phonics and comprehension. Both of those are two steps to reading that are always a part of it, like spelling and correctly on the paper and communicating for writing. So those are two steps, and a lot of times one of the steps or the other is ignored.
That's powerful. That's really good. So how can
it's the truth?
Yeah. Right. And I mean, if you think about the public school system, they are not always teaching phonics. So there's so many words. I know I grew up just reading, sounding it out. So I'm reading with my kids and they can read better than I can. Words, because they're used to seeing words that they do not, I'm not saying they don't read better than I can, but if they come to a word that they've never seen, I come to a word that I've never seen, I don't necessarily sound it out the same way that they do. Because they understand the phonics that's like going on in their mind right now. So I feel like they're going to have a lot more vocabulary at a younger age, knowing the phonics.
And one of the things my program does is give a huge vocabulary. It is shocking how many words our kids that are fairly simple have never heard that we grew up hearing. But like what you're talking about, in 1910 to 1920 and back in the 1950s, there was a shift in education that left phonics, and they've never gone back to it. It was look safe from the 50s on, and those kids who are memorizers and read a whole bunch will pick up on the patterns because the patterns are logical. They're systematic. They are so easily determined because they're very basic.
Wow. So I would love
to go forward with some more.
Oh, sure. Keep going. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, when a parent, like one of the questions we talked about was the homeschooling family's biggest challenge. And for me, there's so much good stuff out there that getting distracted from the important and the basic and the foundations could be a real challenge, because there's lots of fun stuff, and not grounding them in reading, writing, and arithmetic, the basics, makes homeschooling, makes public school, makes everything in life more difficult. Because you can't get a driver's license if you can't pass the test, and you can't rent an apartment if you can't read the contract, and you can't become a lawyer or a doctor or a welder or electrician if you can't read enough for the codes and all this stuff that's in part of it. You can't just enjoy a good book. But for a homeschooling family at home, they have subjects like history and science and social studies, and that's so much stress reduction. I have a Iowa mom who was in Georgia, and she was letting her kids flow with lots of lessons and realized that one of them wasn't reading at all, ninth grade. So I have pictures that she sent me because she sat down with him and changed his life, because now he can read and spell. And before, he was just kind of getting by, kind of faking it.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know. I remember as a child, my grown uncle was at my house, and I ran up to him and I handed him a book, said, "Oh, can you read me this book?" And he did not know how to read. And he graduated high school. I mean, a good high school. And he just slid right through the cracks and didn't know how to read. And it was just
millions out there. Probably a very bright man, but just wasn't taught so he could learn.
Right. And I think the comprehension is so key, because I could hand my child, or, he could have been handed a book, and, even my husband, it's so funny. He said, I never read a single book in high school, because I could just kind of skim through and just pick out certain pieces. And he is very bright too, but, he just, reading just wasn't his thing. And I think if people are more confident in reading and they understand the basics and the comprehension, like, if I ask my child, okay, they read a chapter, okay, repeat to me what you learned, so I know that they comprehended it, right? So it's so integral.
Yeah. That's very important. That's smart. Very smart.
So I would love to know how your lessons work in Real Reading Company.
Okay, let's look at lesson 1. We'll look at 4 lessons, and I'll spend a little time on lesson 1, but then we'll just hit briefly 4 other lessons. So lesson 1 is 17 consonants with short vowel A, and that would be slide 2.
Okay.
Patty, slide 2.
I believe lesson 1 is on slide 2, where we're going to look at short vowel A.
Okay. Well, let me just go ahead and explain. All right, so short vowel A, and the way you're going to do this, there's almost 60 words on the list, and they all are short vowel A words, and they are 17 consonants, and someone will sit with their child and they will read the words. The child will read the words to them, and I really encourage them to take a pencil and point to the beginning of the words. Here, let me hold this up. All right, so you point to the beginning of the word, which is the left side, and if you have any curriculum that tells you that you read from left to right, please let me know, because I haven't found any. Read from left to right in English. You spell from left to right. You focus your eyes on the beginning of a word. It will change so many things in your lives. So they read the first word, am, and you say, I am reading to you. Because the way you're going to do it is you're going to have them read the words to you. You're going to call out the words, and they'll spell them in a spiral notebook or on a whiteboard or on paper. And then you chat the whole time about it. So let's do 7 words. So we read am, and they say, I am reading with you. And you'll see that there's the lessons. When the book is held flat, the lessons are here, and any kind of instruction or information is going to be here. So they read am, and you say, I am reading with you. My 4-year-old nephew says, I am an excellent baseball player. You read the word mat, and they read the word mat to you, and you say, it's over there on the floor. It's keeping the dust out in front of the door. They read the word wag, and you say, the puppy will wag his tail. When I get to the word bat, that's the first time I usually say, what is it? And they say, little ones always say an animal, a mammal that flies in a cave. And I say, what else? You mean like in baseball? And I'm like, yeah, like in baseball. And I'm going to bat the wasp away, and I'm going to bat my eyes at you because I like you. So you just relax and have a conversation. Let's take 2 more words. You look at the word lap, and they say, you run a lap, you run around, and you have a lap when you sit down around the track. And sometime after the lesson, you think, oh, yeah, you hear the dog get a drink and you go, oh, yeah. Gideon had his men get drinks, and some of them got down to lap up the water. And I'm thinking, what you're doing is not memorizing the dictionary in random order. You're not calling every definition to their mind. Yeah. You're having a conversation because you want a brain path that goes directly back to these letters can be pronounced and they have meaning. And that's what you're doing by the conversation. One more word, the word jazz. I say it's a kind of music. My neighbor was a band director. He sits down with his daughter and gets out the tuba and plays blues and jazz and rock and chats about it and enjoys it. And she loves it. I just say it's a kind of music. You follow the interests of your family, and you're going to be building a huge vocabulary. It's very relaxed. It's very pleasant. And every lesson is designed to be extremely easy. If it isn't, you have to do we've got another lesson to go to. But before we do that, okay, you read the words, then you call out the words to spell. So they spell the word. I call out pass, and they write P-A-S. I go, how many S's does pass have? And they add an S, 2, and I go, okay, I probably am going to cover it up and say pass and have them write it again. And they write P-A-S, hesitation, S. I might have them write it one more time, maybe at the end of the lesson. A lesson can be the 10 words that are on Roman numeral 1, where they read them and spell them and get 100 for reading and 100 for spelling, or the whole page, depending on the age and the attention span and the interests of the child and the time you have.
Right.
So you can pretty much gauge it to whatever. On the other side of the page are instructions, and they're going to have sounds of the letters. They're going to have information on different patterns and rules that you might encounter. Okay, let's look at the top of the lesson page. It has 17 consonants. All of those 17 consonants have one sound only on this page. So when you get to the letter G, they're not going to have to guess if it's one of the 3 sounds for G. It says gag. S says lesson 17 introduces the soft Z sound, his, as, is. Lesson T, X, Y, they're all one sound. And that is great for ESL and ELL because they can relax and they can pronounce the words correctly. Wow. It's the same consonants, lessons 1 through 9, all the way through. And okay, so let me show another thing. There's a letter B. No, not yet. Letter B, B, on this page. But if you'll notice up there, there's no letter D. Mm-hmm. There's no letter D because letter D will be introduced in lesson 10. So they have 9 lessons to relax with B. Wow, that's good. Great for the processing disorder kids, for the focused kid, for the dyslexic, for the dysgraphic. Processing issues is really important. One more thing about this page. It's a whole list of little words. But the truth is, when I have a big kid, I usually take a paper and I write across this way, anti-disestablishmentarianism, and I say, do you want to read it or spell it first? And they look at me like, you know. Then I start to slash through the syllables, anti-this, and they start to read with me because they're like, oh, I can read those little things. Right. Okay, so these are words, because I don't want them to read nonsense and not have the habit of reading for meaning. But the truth is, this is it's almost 60 syllable patterns with the short vowel A. So we'll take one word, am, the first word on the list. Am, you teach it, I am reading with you. That's all you worry about is the meaning of the little word. But you're going to have a whole bunch of words that use that syllable pattern. So you have 2 syllables in Amsterdam amphibian, ampersand, example, that have all of these syllables. And then if you look down the page, there's pass, mass, fast, the double S words. And those are, I'm going to get to it, honey. My husband's talking to me. Sorry. Is now you have 2 syllables in a 4-syllable word, ambassador. So, and it's bass the fish. So it's the same 17 consonants in lesson 1, and then lesson 2 is short vowel I. Lesson 3 is A and I mixed. Lesson 4 is lessons 1, 2, and 4. 5 is and they build until lesson 9 when you have all of the short vowels, and the short vowels are 50 to 63% of the syllables in words. So you have half of the words you'll ever see. It also has a very closed syllable rule attached to it that's simple. Huge vocabulary. There'll be so many words they don't have. If this lesson is too hard, if I had a senior who read the first 2 words, and mot. He was a pretty capable senior. We said, oh, we were doing an in-service with some teachers, and he came in to let me show a lesson. I said, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Took him back to lesson A, which is the next slide. Lesson A is am and at. It's M, T, and B. It's just 3 consonants. Lessons 1 through A through E will build the consonants to the 17 if you need it. And then this is lesson 73 is the next one. But if you've got a little one, they get 100 if they read Roman numeral 1, which is 2 words, am and at. And they get 100 if they spell it. And they're very encouraged. Success is encouragement. Success is exciting. Success is motivating. And that's why those kids begged to come down to do the reading in the basement, because they knew they were going to be successful. I had one little girl who stayed on lesson 1, and she didn't want to leave it. And I said, we're doing lesson 2. We're starting it now. So she went to lesson 2, and then she said, oh, okay, because lesson 2 wasn't any harder. She just figured, I'm good at these. I'll stay with these, because she wasn't reading otherwise. All right, the next lesson. This one is the first lesson in the last unit in the big book. It's the first lesson in the last workbook, upper grade level workbook. And it is, this whole section is putting it all together. So you take a sound, like the K sound with 6 spellings, or you take the CH sound with 3 sounds, CH spelling with 3 sounds, or you take X with 4 sounds on lesson 75. This is 73. This is consonant Y and vowel Y. So you have the Y, and then you have 7 sounds for Y. And if you'll notice on the instruction page, it's all review, 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 review. And it shows you that the first time that you changed the consonant Y to a vowel was lesson 39. So they're very relaxed by the time they get that. And that shift is very comfortable. And so all of these are reviewed from previous lessons. None of this is hard. Every lesson is designed to be easy. And then you'll see at the bottom is just mixed up words that follow these 7. Now there's 4 more sounds for Y. But those sounds will be introduced in lesson 76. So the EY, key and obey, and there's some other things, and we will, they'll, but I wanted to make it easy. So one more slide. How do you teach that lesson? How do you teach every lesson? They read the words to you. You call out the words and they spell them on the spiral notebook or the whiteboard. You chat about the word meanings, and then you mark 100 for reading, 100 for spelling. Yeah. Okay, this is the last lesson. This is simply a review lesson. It's an easy lesson for them to read and spell. It has, it's just relaxed. They can pronounce it and they can spell it. They probably won't know what all the words mean. So you'll have to have a giant dictionary handy, or your phone dictionary these days. 2 words, just talk about 2. Concatenation is what Siri does when she hears your syllables and she answers you with her syllables. That's the process. Sesquipedalian is Rebecca, lover of big words. Mm-hmm. So 90 lessons, all of the syllable patterns. There's probably an errant syllable pattern in some medical journal or someplace that I haven't found, but I've been looking for about 9 years since the book was published, and I can't find any that are missing.
Wow.
So it's relaxed and it's easy, and every lesson is just click, click, click. With one little boy, Travis, 21, we got to lesson 33 in 3 weeks because he'd flunked the police exam and he was stressed out.
Yeah.
And so we worked for a couple hours a day and got him to lesson 32. That is further than Teach Your Child to Read in 100 lessons, which is a big seller, because he toward the end of that book says, now that you've learned the short vowels, go and teach the rest. Well, 32 ends the short vowels, and then we go on with the rest. So you want to flip it? Let's see. Okay. There's different ways that moms would want to use this.
Yeah.
So some will want just the big book, and the big book is enough. That's all you need. So you have you order the big book. I have one mom who has 5 children. She loves the fact that she doesn't have to keep up with workbooks. She can just have that one book for her 5 kids. Some moms only want what's online. And so we have a subscription for a year that you can order. That's the big book online for those moms. And then they can take it with you. Please be sure they're handwriting if you're doing it, not just typing, because writing opens up learning centers and it's very important skill.
Right. Absolutely.
And now some of my moms, the next slide. Do we have the next slide? Some of my moms like workbooks, and I fought the workbooks. I didn't think they needed it because this isn't really enough. But the workbooks are wonderful. They are word study books, and they are independent work that a child can sit at the kitchen table and do the lessons. Do we have the next slide? And work on the lessons, and then they can.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think there might be some technical difficulty with getting the workbook up. I'm sorry.
Well, there's 3 different workbook levels, and the students will be supporting the lesson, and they exactly follow the main textbook lesson. So you'll have alphabetizing, rhyming, syllabication, abbreviations, all kinds of things that match with what they're learning in the main textbook, with what you have read and spelled with them. It's just supporting for that. And so what I would say is that if you are a mom of a 1st grader, I would order the set. I would choose the set of workbooks, and you like them to have independent work and support work for what you're doing. Choose the workbooks, and I would 1st grade workbooks, and I'd order the set. There's either 8 or 5 or 3 because they're in 2 different categories. The 2nd grade has 4 workbooks in a set, so you order the set of workbooks. The upper grade level workbook is 3rd grade through 12th. It is for anyone who's learning to read or supporting their reading, 3rd grade through 12th. And they are the 1st grade goes through lesson 36, the 2nd grade goes through lesson 72, and the upper grade levels go all the way through 1 through 90. The only one that covers the pre-unit is the primer in the 1st grade, and they exactly follow the lessons. And if we had the letters, I'd show you that there's 5 questions to answer for the 1st graders or 4-year-olds. Some of them easily can do the 1st grade stuff. There's 10 lessons in the second grade where you rhyme 10 words, alphabetize 10 words. There's 20 words in the upper grade level. And it's all in support of what you have read and spelled with them in the first lesson, which is a limited number of words, 22 words in second and upper grade level versus 10 words in the first grade level. If you've got a fifth grader or a seventh grader who is struggling, either they're a terrible speller or they have gaps in their reading, you want to get the upper grade level book, use the first exercise, and just use it as your spelling or use it as your reading.
Okay, and so that answers Alicia's question. She was wondering if your system would help with her 10-year-old who is struggling with spelling. So that would be the one.
Perfect. It's designed with him in mind or her in mind. The 10-year-old, they can read and spell through, and I would encourage the upper grade level workbooks because you have a choice. Since she knows how to read, she learned this way, then the first exercise in every lesson in the workbook, which matches the big book 1 through 90, five workbooks, is going to be a limited number of words for her child to read and spell. The last page of every lesson is exactly from the big book. If she needs more words, almost 60 words to read and spell. And then she has the in-between stuff that she can use.
Perfect.
If you're a mom who is not like Stephanie and doesn't feel confident about her phonics background, then you might consider ordering the workbook that fits and then going to the upper grade level and choose either the subscription or the other, because it has insights into what a learner might be doing. You can see their actions and know the things, and then it has tips and things that you can do if you see this as a problem.
Okay. And so our followers, our viewers can go to realreading.com, right? That is the website. And that's where they can purchase all of these materials. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the website. Okay. As to how it fits with learning styles, do we have time for that?
Sure. Yep. We can finish off with that because that is what a lot of our parents are wondering, because we have so many different learning styles represented here.
Well, all right. There's 3 that are used in reading. So if you're a visual learner, every lesson you're going to see the words as you read them. You're going to see the words as you write them. If you're an auditory learner, you will hear yourself say the words as you say them to your mom, and she will say the words so you will hear them. And if you're a kinesthetic learner, you'll be doing the words for example, when you get to the EE words and you read the word beet, open up a jar of beets and let them taste it. They'll never forget the difference in the EE beet and the EA beet when you get to the EA words that say E, because you beat the drum or the action. I did that with some kiddos and they were like, "You never gave us beets," because I said, "God, no, we don't want to do that."
I love it.
It's about foundation for all of them, for the classical learning, for the Charlotte Mason, for Montessori. I don't want to leave without telling you about my 3 kids that I started telling you about, though.
Yes, absolutely.
And for homeschoolers, the one thing that you want to be sure they want to do is watch the eyes of your children. Are they looking at the letters left or right across the page when they're reading, or are they looking at the picture to figure out what the words are? Are they looking at the ceiling to try to remember what the word might be, or from their memory, or guessing, or at your face to see if they're guessing it right when they're reading? Wow. Focusing letters on the page left to right is a very powerful, very important skill. And I don't know any curriculum out there that's pushing kids to read and spell from left to right. I've gotten dizzy watching kids circle their eyes as they read words, and had to focus. Now let me tell you about Rebecca. She was my sesquipedalian. She sits, and her mom starts with lesson A, and they read through the lesson and spell through the lesson. She marks a great big A because she knew she had aced it. She was so excited. It has 5 lessons left. They do some kind of a spelling game. I had a picture I was going to put on, but I felt like we wouldn't have time, of Abigail, who's on lesson 22, and Isaac, who's on lesson 47, and Rebecca on 78. And they're on the back porch writing with chalk, and she's calling out each lesson to the child that's on that lesson, marking with chalk for their spelling game. And I told the mom I might put it on this, and she said, "Oh, we're so sad to lose our spelling game because Rebecca only has 5 lessons left." You go at the pace of the kid and at the pace of your family schedule, and you've just finished it all.
Wow.
TJ, 7th grader, reading on his 2nd grade level. He was, his mom sat down with him. These are my hero moms, and worked the lesson through with him with the lessons. And in the next time he was tested, he had jumped 4 grade levels in reading. And he was an AB student. Mom kept saying she was getting notes. He was in school and she was working with him at home. But she said, I get notes from kids, from the teacher, and they say things I don't understand. Doing good work. What does that mean? You know, because that's not the kind of note she usually got home with me. He was an AB student. He sent me a copy by email of his acceptance letter to college.
Wow.
My real hero is Gina. About 4 years ago, I did a workshop at a homeschool convention, and she attended, and she said the doctor said not to try to teach him. He's nonverbal, non-writing. And I said, well, get a whiteboard and start with, writing. And she said, I ran into her 2 years later, which is about 2 years ago. I hope I see her at another convention this year. But she said he started by writing great big on the whiteboard, filling it up with the words. He's down to this size now in writing the words. And he was on lesson 26 or 28 when I talked to her last 2 years ago. And the 28 are compound words that combine short vowel words like inlet and address. And his grandmother was kind of shiny-eyed sitting next to her, and he looked up at me. She looked up at me and said, he said his first sentence last week. Aww. So that was 2 years ago. I hope I get to see her. Wow. With reading and spelling plain and simple, you'll be ordering a trusted curriculum that works. It simply works. And you can be confident that you are building a foundation for skilled reading and spelling, pure and simple. Yes, it's different from the other curriculum, but it actually works for all of the kids. It really is. It's fun. I can claim credit for the grunt work, but that's all.
Well, I think it's amazing what you put together.
He put it together.
Amen.
It's fun. I mean, it really is fun. It's a fun ministry. I'm glad that he didn't pull me out of it.
Well, thank you so much, Deede. This has been absolutely incredible. I love the program. I love how simple it is, how much thought has been put into it, that the child learns the B before, they're throwing the D in there. I mean, just little things like that can be really overwhelming for kids. So I love in how you have just been putting this together. So I'm really excited about this. Again, you can go
very hard to make sure every lesson was easy. Sorry.
No, I mean,
worked really hard to make sure. One mother say, my boys love it. She had 3 boys. They just love the lessons. They can't wait to do them. And then she'd say, but it's so easy. I don't know. I need to do something that teaches. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've worked so hard to make it easy, and I was just like, well, yes, it is easy.
But there's progress. I mean, there's results, and that's what's important. Yeah.
Quickly. I have children who are in the, their mothers call me because they are guessers, really strong guessers, and they can't break the habit. So I say, don't have them read. And then they call me panicked, and they're like, I can't stop my daughter from reading. And I was like, what do you mean? They're in the doctor's office and the bulletins and the billboards. And I was like, is she really reading or is she guessing? And they're like, oh, no, she's really reading. And I'm like, oh, So I'm a little more careful about how I describe. Don't have them read anything when you're doing the lessons, because once they're really reading, then you can just let them fly and you can give them all their assignments. They can pretty much do whatever curriculum you put in front of them for reading and spelling as far as the actual work, but it really works amazingly.
That's awesome.
You're a lovely hostess. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Just so appreciate having you here today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you have any questions, you can go to her website and reach out to Deede. And if you're looking for a quality curriculum platform, you can always. Good. I'm glad that you're available for them. So thank you again so much. And we will see you next time on Homeschool Live.